Well, here he is, turbocharged Donkey Kong. And isn't he just incredible? Not only is he incredible, but there's also one specific thing that makes him different from the entire Skylanders roster. He's the only Skylander to have 10 fingers and 10 toes. Oh yeah, and he's a Nintendo crossover. I guess that part's cool too. Releasing alongside one of my new favourites, Hammer Slam Bowser, Donkey Kong has some big shoes to fill. Won't be too hard with 10 toes. Anyways, I'm really excited to see what this guy can offer. And hey, maybe both of them combined will make Imaginators on the Switch a worthwhile purchase. But my hopes aren't too high with that one. I'm so excited. I'm gonna grab some more bananas. Just like Bowser, Donkey Kong found his way into Skylands with the same riff shenanigans as before, except with Donkey Kong it was apparently his curiosity that sparked him to enter the rift. But I reckon it's actually because he's a stupid, dumb ape. Sorry DK, I'm just angry I can't find the damn comic anywhere. Anyways, let's move on to the stats. Donkey Kong is an extremely bulky Skylander. By level 20 he has 1110 health, which is on par with most of the giants. He's also pretty powerful and has decent speed. Yeah, these stats aren't balanced in the slightest. That's the power of 10 fingers and 10 toes, I guess. With nothing else stopping us, let's get right into the moveset. Okay, that might be a problem later, but we're safe for now. First up, we have a 4-hit combo with the last 2 hits doing extra damage. Every now and then one of the 4 hits can move an enemy back, but for the most part it's a pretty risky move that can be punished quite easily. But it is a solid primary attack, and getting the full combo on an enemy can be pretty powerful. The attack is also really speedy, especially the last 2 hits which let you cover a lot of area in a short amount of time. You're making yourself pretty vulnerable when you use this attack, so don't forget you can jump out of the combo at any time to get out of a sticky situation. For a secondary attack, Donkey Kong throws a barrel which does a pretty hefty amount of damage. It's also a much safer option than the primary attack, and it pushes enemies away. The attack itself is pretty sluggish, so you won't be able to keep hordes of enemies away, especially when the pushback isn't super strong, but it's still a useful move. It also has a different animation when you throw a barrel at close range, just like Pop Fizz, which is not important, but I still thought it was worth sharing. So that's DK's base moveset, and I like where this is going. His biggest strength so far is his versatility. The primary attack can rack up some good damage, and the barrel throw gives him a strong range attack when things get too intense for close combat. Not to mention, he's pretty fun to play as. Keep it up DK, you're doing great. Time for some upgrades. The first upgrade gives us the 3rd attack, which makes DK whip out a bongo, hell yeah. If you keep mashing the 3rd button, Donkey Kong slaps the life out of the bongo, damaging enemies nearby. The initial slamming down of the bongo pushes enemies back, but after that you're a sitting duck for attacks. Or a sitting donk, I guess. After you stop using the attack, Donkey Kong jumps forward and leaves the bongo behind, which keeps playing for an extra 4 seconds. It's significantly weaker when on its own, but it's still good to have the extra damage. It's like Cobra Kadabra's little basket buddies, but nowhere near as cute. Come on guys, at least give the bongo a face. A handy little trick is to jump out of this attack because it still leaves the bongo behind but doesn't force the extra animation, which allows you to get out much faster. Overall, it's a nice addition to Donkey Kong's kit. You won't get much use out of the actual bongo attack, but the bongo you leave behind can sink in a lot of damage to groups of enemies. The next upgrade is a complete game changer. Now when you hold the primary attack, Donkey Kong becomes Super Donkey Kong. What is it with these Nintendo characters and bordering nudity? Now you have a free hit primary attack that pushes enemies back, throws them up into the air, and then slams them down, with the last hit doing bonus damage. The first 2 hits actually deal 2 rounds of damage, which just makes the attack even deadlier. This is like the polar opposite of the regular primary attack. Enemies are going to be knocked up and down constantly, so the only real threat are fat enemies that you can't knock around. Like Percussion Pounder. I'm sorry bro, but you're fat, just accept it. Now his secondary attack is a barrel roll. This gives him a short burst of mobility, and he can also roll through large crowds to deal a lot of damage. Because Super Donkey Kong is on a time limit, it's important to not waste any of those precious seconds, and that makes this move very useful. And lastly, instead of the bongo attack, you now stomp the ground, which damages and stuns enemies. Okay, this upgrade is quite an upgrade. Unlike Bowser, this form feels like a direct improvement rather than an alternate option. Molten Bowser was stronger than the regular, but you couldn't reset the shell timers, which gave the incentive to switch forms frequently. Super Donkey Kong has got more damage, more knockback, more speed, and no drawbacks. I mean, if you really like bongos, then I guess the base form has that. But they don't have faces, so I don't care. It's not even that risky to enter the form, you're only vulnerable for about a second. And now compare that to the 10 seconds of pure destruction that you get, and you can kinda see that something isn't balanced here. I'm not exactly upset about his super form being overpowered, I just wish there was more reason to also use his regular form. Just when you think this character can't get any more broken, he goes and gets this upgrade. Now if you hold down the secondary attack, you hop into an arrow barrel. Nice reference. After that you're launched out of it and crash down wherever you aimed the target. This does ridiculous amounts of knockback to nearby enemies, which isn't the only thing that makes it so good. When you're hidden in the barrel, you are completely invulnerable to any damage. In fact, the enemies don't even bother trying to hit you. They've already given up and we're only on the 3rd upgrade. This makes the Barrel Blast, yes, that's its new name, I didn't steal it from anywhere, a great offensive move and a great defensive move. If you're getting overwhelmed by a big group, simply hop in and then knock all the enemies away, or just launch yourself away to escape. This attack can actually hit an enemy twice for some reason, but because the enemies will be knocked back after the first hit, this is only useful against fat people. Take that, fat people. And for our last upgrade before the split paths, now when Super Donkey Kong does the stomp move, a bunch of ladders and girders fall from the sky. Oh yeah, like that super obscure video game from the 80s. Donkey Kong. References aside, this is a pretty good upgrade that increases the range of the stomp. It is still Super DK's weakest move though. Yeah, it can stun, but how is that better than what the primary attack does? Trick question, it's not. It's still a good move for area coverage though, and it's pretty satisfying to use. I'm gonna be honest, I think Donkey Kong might have the best 4 base upgrades of any Skylander. All 4 of them are really interesting and add new layers to his gameplay. No boring damage increases or anything like that. Very impressive. If the split paths keep this up, then DK could be our first 10 out of 10. We'll have to wait and see. The 2 paths we have are going to be pretty interesting, because one of them focuses on regular Donkey Kong, whilst the other one focuses on Super Donkey Kong. We'll start with the top path, Powder Keg Power. The first upgrade for this path replaces your standard barrel with a TNT barrel, which explode when you throw them. It does a tiny bit more damage than before, and it can hit multiple enemies at once, but I think this move could have used a knockback buff because it simply can't compare to the super form. And yes, that is going to be this path's most difficult challenge, being able to make the regular form worth using, and so far, it could be doing better. The middle upgrade kinda just does the same thing as the first one. Now when you use the Barrel Blast, you'll land on a TNT barrel, which, you guessed it, makes the move stronger and increases the area of damage. This upgrade really doesn't need to exist because the Barrel Blast was already a really good move. The extra damage is noticeable and everything, but it still feels like they could have used this upgrade slot on something more interesting. I really hate to keep this negativity going, but the last upgrade is easily the worst one yet. Now after you leave your bongo playing for 4 seconds, it explodes, dealing damage and hitting multiple enemies. Look, I know this upgrade path is all about explosions, but it's super bland, which is the complete opposite of his first 4 upgrades. Not to mention this bongo upgrade actually sucks in terms of its effectiveness. The explosion deals a pathetic amount of damage and doesn't even push enemies back slightly. It literally does less damage than a single hit of the primary attack, which just doesn't make any sense. Oh boy. Well, I think this upgrade path speaks for itself. The worst part is I still found myself relying on Super Donkey Kong even though it didn't receive a single upgrade from this path. Not to say that nothing is improved though. The barrel throw hitting multiple targets can be super useful in the right situation, and the Barrel Blast does a ton, and I mean a ton of damage. Donkey Kong is still a strong Skylander on this path, but I am definitely hoping that the bottom path impresses me a bit more. So now for the bottom path, Pointy Preparations, which buffs Super Donkey Kong. This is going to be fun. The first upgrade for the bottom path gives us 2 upgrades in one. Firstly, you have a new spiky barrel, which makes the barrel throw do some extra damage. Now interestingly, both of these paths buff the barrel throw. If you pick the top path, you'll have a slightly stronger barrel that explodes. And if you pick the bottom path, you'll have a significantly stronger barrel that only hits one enemy at a time. Honestly, I think the extra damage from the bottom path is much more valuable, but if you're not convinced yet, don't forget about the second part of this upgrade. It makes the super form have spiky barrels too, which increases primary attack damage. I swear to god, this path is already better than the whole of the top path. Super Donkey Kong has no business being any stronger than he already was, but I'm not complaining. The stronger barrel throw isn't quite as important, but it's still a welcome addition. The middle upgrade also gives us multiple buffs. Not only does it make the barrel roll do more damage and have a larger hitbox, but also after the roll is finished, some sort of spiritual barrel is sent forward. It does the same amount of damage as the barrel roll and it has pretty much infinite range. This makes the barrel roll a really dangerous part of your kit. The spirit barrel increases your area coverage by a ton. Simply put, the offensive capabilities are through the roof. With the last upgrade of the bottom path, you can now heal as Super DK, and these aren't rookie numbers. You heal every 2 seconds, but the interesting thing is that the amount of health you receive is determined by your level. To give you an idea, at level 15 you get 93 health every 2 seconds, meaning from the start of Super DK's timer to the end, you'll rack up a total of 558 health. But if you manage to get DK all the way to level 20, you'll get a disgusting 666 health. And you don't even have to do anything to get it. What were they thinking? This upgrade honestly makes Donkey Kong feel unkillable, because he pretty much is. If you're even slightly worried about your health, just switch to Super and watch all the enemies' hard work turn to dust. I'm genuinely starting to feel bad for them now. You can also play completely recklessly in Super form now, because you'll probably earn back the health that you could potentially be losing. Even at a lower level, this upgrade completely shifts the gameplay. It's very, very broken. Well, I feel a little bit stupid to even do this section for Donkey Kong, but let's discuss which path is better. 666 health. I'm trying my best to be open-minded here, but I'm really struggling to find a single reason to pick the top path. The barrel throw and barrel blast didn't really benefit too much from the upgrades they got, and the bongo just sucks. Never bring up the bongo upgrade again. Well, if you've picked the bottom path like good boys and girls, then you've basically won every fight before it even starts. But there's still one more thing we can give this maniacal beast to make him that little bit stronger, and that is a soul gem. For a soul gem we have... Smaller ape! Now when DK bongs his bongo, a meter appears. The more you slap, the more it fills up, and soon enough, Diddy Kong is summoned. He flies around shooting his iconic peanut gun at enemies. A single peanut is very weak. What did you expect? It's a peanut. But this isn't a problem whatsoever, because the great thing about Diddy is that he can't be interrupted by enemies. No matter what, he's going to be there racking up damage even if Donkey Kong is going through absolute hell. He's especially good at picking off weaker enemies while you deal with the big boys, but there really isn't a situation where he isn't helpful. He hangs around for roughly 18 seconds and then he flies away. But luckily you can send him right back in again as soon as he leaves. Even when Diddy Kong is out, you can still fill up the meter, and I think it would have been cool if this reset Diddy's timer, but unfortunately it does nothing. Also, just in case you were wondering, no, the path you take does not affect Diddy Kong whatsoever. If you were desperately looking for a reason to pick the awful path, well, too bad, I got nothing for you. Thankfully, the fact that Super Donkey Kong can't summon Diddy Kong gives the regular DK more of a purpose. This is pretty well appreciated, and it also creates a new simple strategy. Slap bongo, summon smaller ape, become Super DK, win. That's pretty much it, I'm not gonna lie. We've tackled all of DK's moves and upgrades, so now we move on to a redundant but still very important question. Is Donkey Kong good? Do bananas grow on trees? I think so. The amount of variety in his gameplay and the range of different moves he has keeps him feeling fresh even after hours of playing as him. Not to mention how many references there are in his moveset and how charming he is overall. If you can't tell, I'm very happy with how this fella turned out, which is why I'm giving him a 9 out of 10. Whilst Bowser still has the slightly cooler moveset, which is why he's still rated slightly higher, turbocharged Donkey Kong is clearly the stronger of the two by a considerable amount, and Bowser was already pretty good. He may actually be one of the only Skylanders from an older game that could survive Imaginator's Nightmare mode, and that's really saying something. He is a ton of fun, and being a starter pack Skylander is very easy to get your hands on. If you're going to get Hammer Slam Bowser, you may as well throw this handsome lad in too, because they are both truly fantastic Skylanders. Well, it's safe to say that I've had a great time as this Skylander, but it still feels like we're missing something. That's right, we haven't talked about one of the coolest things about this crossover, and that is that these two figurines function as both Skylanders and Amiibo. You know what, I think this is worth checking out. Where are your clothes?